Hey, Triumph Church, I am so grateful and so excited to be giving you guys this update today. We've been working hard over these last few weeks and these last few days, especially gathering stories and content to tell you, to give you an idea of the ministry that God has been doing in and through Triumph Lutheran Brethren Church. And so today, I'm excited as we think about the year in review, we think about this past year. I'm so grateful for Pastor Jay and so many others that have worked hard to get this content put together and help us out today. As we begin, I want to start with Psalm 66. I want to dive into this chapter here a little bit. And you'll notice at the end a call to all of us. And so there's a call all the way through it. The psalmist says this, a shout for joy to God, all the earth, sing glory of his name, make his praise glorious. Now a command for us, we are to say to God, how awesome are your deeds. So great is your power that your enemies cringe before you. All the earth bows down to you. They sing praises to you. They sing praises of your name. And then this call, this reason that we're gathering today, is to look at this and say, come and see what God has done, his awesome deeds for mankind. I need to do this. I got to be honest. So here's my confession for you, is that when I don't see what God is doing, my natural inclination is to assume that he's not doing anything, which we know is not true. It's not right. But I need to pause so I can see what God is doing, notice it. And so today what I want to do is, in this update that we have, is I want to give you a glimpse. It's only a glimpse into what God has done and what he is doing, his awesome deeds in and through Triumph. So we're going to start here. There's a couple different ways that we can use to see what God has done through numbers and through stories. And so we're going to look at both. And first, let's take a look at some numbers. First up, glory be to God for the giving and for providing exactly what we needed. We covered all of our expenses, except for $665, but we found the money for that. Across a $1.6 million in giving, $1.7 million budget, we were within 0.04% of covering all of our expenses. So yes, we didn't receive what we were hoping and budgeted for in giving. That was about a 1.71 or so number. But God gave us exactly what we needed because we also underspent this year. On top of the $1.655 million that's been given in general fund, we also received nearly $143,000 in above and beyond giving, designated giving to special events and special things around the church, which means just under $1.8 million was given to Triumph Lutheran Brethren Church this year. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. The Lord provides through you, through all of us, as we respond to his prompting and all that he's saying in our lives. And so I say thank you. The stories that you're going to see and all this that you're going to take a look at would not be possible without your generosity. So here's what I'm going to do as we look at the numbers, kind of break into three categories. One, digital. Two, Triumph as a whole, and three, looking at the campuses specifically. Now, digital is kind of new for us, right? We really haven't been focusing on our digital for a while. Some of those parts have been there, but to really spend time thinking about it. The first one has to do with our Friday emails. I know they're blessing many of you. I hear that feedback, but also judging from the opens, 45,000 emails have been opened and read just this past year alone. And when we start to think about that many, just so you know, the average open rate, they say when you do a subscription-based email to people, if you can get 15 to 20% of the people to open and read the emails, you're doing really good. Well, Triumph, nearly 50%, 40 to 50% of you guys are opening those emails every Friday. It just doubles. It's doubling what experts say you should be getting. So grateful you're finding it helpful, and I'm grateful it's become a great communication tool for us as a church. Also, you can see our digital streaming and download, our podcasts, our YouTube videos and things like that. Over 14,000 views on those in this past year. And then one that I'm really excited about is this I'm New Here. We had a new website launch in August. And when that website launched in August, we put a page on there. It's a newer page. It's a page that says I'm New Here. Since August, when our website launched, 648 views to that page alone, which is absolutely phenomenal. God's doing something and utilizing our website to get us there. So we look at Triumph as a whole, a couple things to note. One is Vacation Bible School. We're gearing up for yet another year. Last year's Vacation Bible School, we had nearly 800 people. 776 people are new to our database within this last year. We have 776 new names that we did not have this time last year. We had 197 students engaged in our Little Lights preschool. 190. That's a big school, guys. That's a huge school, guys. And we have an opportunity to minister to 197 3, 4, 5-year-olds and their families beyond that. 91 Bibles given away. 91 people who approached us saying, I don't have a Bible. And we were able to provide them with a Bible this past year. Over 2,200 individual people that we know of that are in our database that were impacted by the ministry of Triumph this past year. Many more than that, but those are the ones we actually know the names of, and we know that they were impacted. And then nearly 33,000 when you look at our worship service attendance. If you look at the campuses, specifically at our West Campus, celebrating 26 baptisms. That's one every other week. Our Beach Bash, which was a family kids event that we hold every winter. In the dead of winter, we have a Beach Bash. Over 200 people came to that. Grant and his team have been ministering to 160 plus junior and senior high kids over this past year. At our East Campus, we've served over 4,000 Hungry Hearts meals. It's become such a beautiful place in our ministry on Wednesday nights. We have 182 kids that Janelle and her team are ministering to through Club 316, which is the Wednesday night ministry. And this past year on Sunday mornings, we've been able to run 11 different Sunday school classes for adults. And I know numbers don't tell the whole story, but they certainly tell part of the story. So we are thanking Jesus for an incredible, a fantastic year this past year as a ministry. If we look at those numbers, which are just, again, a glimpse of some of the numbers. Well, as we tell some of the stories that we're going to move on into now, what I want to do is I want us to remember our vision statement. As a church, our vision is to see the life and message of Jesus transform hearts, homes, and cities. And we often think about it that way, kind of like a ripple that goes into a pond as you throw the rock into a calm pond. It starts in one place and it just continues to expand out from there. As God impacts and transforms a heart, it makes a difference in the home, makes a difference in the city that we're surrounded and living in. And so today I want to start with hearts. Our vision is to see hearts transformed. I could tell so many stories here, but I'm only going to take time for 3. And so these 3 stories come to us. The first one is the story of Susan. I don't know if you know Susan. Susan Cody has been attending Triumph for many, many years. This year, she decided to jump back into groups, and she found herself in a women's group on Wednesday evenings. She indicated that she just so appreciated the group and the diversity of the ages and how these younger moms had such a commitment to their faith and to desire to raise their kids, to love the Lord. She was so impressed by that. And she was also, frankly, quite surprised and pleased to be asked to share her wisdom along the way. But this spring study specifically really impacted her life. And so I want to share a little bit of Susan's story with you. She sent us a letter, and this is a little bit of the story from Susan Cody. She said this: after each of the lessons of the study this spring, we were given experiences in the study guide to help us put what we'd heard, read, and seen into practice. Well, this was right up my alley, Susan says. One of the lessons on technology made me realize that technology had a firm hold on me, and I didn't like it. Based on the belief that a prominent way the enemy numbs us and addicts us to entertainment rather than joy is with technology. The challenge was to take one day that week and for 24 hours fast from all electronics, which means TV, phone, computer, etc. Well, I did it. I read and journaled and loved it so much that I made the decision to fast one evening a week from all that stuff. I now look forward to my Wednesday evening and what I'll be doing instead of being trapped into what I thinking was necessary. I'm not sure what of all of this made the difference, but Jesus and I are connecting now in a new way, in a way that I've longed for a long time. It's pretty great to think that that can happen for an old gal like me. I so can look forward to meeting again in the fall with a special group of ladies. May the renewal continue. You know, Susan's story is a story that I so appreciate, not only because of the transformation that she talked about in there, but I think often we find ourselves when we think about transformed hearts, it's usually some grand 180-degree shift away from something, right? But when we have that mindset and that view of transformation, in which the life and message of Jesus makes some massive change in someone's life, we lose a little of the transformation. The transformation that God does is actually an ongoing, continual thing as well. It's not because it's always a 180-degree shift, but rather the Lord is continuing to work, like in Susan's life, a little at a time. So I'm grateful for Susan sharing her story. We also have the story of Mark. This is another longer-term story, someone who's been with Triumph for a long time. Mark is a guy who attends our church and our campus at West, and Mark gave us this story. Mark said this: I started coming to Triumph over 10 years ago. My wife was a Christian, but I had lost my faith years before that. And this was a major point of contention in our marriage. I agreed to come to church and raise our children with faith, but I didn't believe myself. After several years, I began to appreciate some of the messages and lessons I learned at Triumph. I saw my children raised in Christ, and I realized that I was thankful for the part God was playing in forming them into being such great little people. We met new friends there, and I appreciated the role God played in their lives. But I always felt so apart from it all. Well, the last few years I spent at odds with myself over what I believed. I felt a growing sense of guilt from how I had lived my life. I felt lonely and apart from my family at times. I wanted my kids to have a father worth having. I wanted a life worth living. Mark says, I was baptized at Triumph this year. It took me years to work up to it, but I finally did it. It was a great experience, and it still is. I realized that I really do repent of my sins, and that I really do believe in Jesus. I don't feel alone anymore. I now share my faith with my family, and I live in a new way. The relationships in my family are as good as they've ever been. I'm so thankful to share this with them finally. Thank you to Jesus, my friends, my family, and thank you to Triumph. The last story I want to share, besides the story of Mark and the story of Susan, just one more heart that's been transformed. And this one's a little special to me. This one is the story of a little girl named Remy. So Remy's a sweet 11-year-old that attended our VBS in the summer of 2021, which was her first time ever coming to Triumph. She's a neighbor kid of one of our East families, and this family felt the Lord prompting them to invite Remy to join them for VBS. And it changed her world, and theirs as well. Remy attended all the days of VBS, and she loved it. She got to know one of my daughters, which is how I got to know and how I met Remy. Well, after VBS, she started attending every single Sunday with this family, and I'm pretty sure that between June and October, she might have only missed like 1 or 2 Sundays in the entire stretch. Well, it was one day in August as I was standing in the foyer that Remy came up to me and she said, Pastor Doug, can I be baptized? Well, what do you say to that? Other than, absolutely you can. And so on September 26th, Remy stood in front of our congregation and she confessed her faith in Jesus. And Remy was baptized. Probably one of the sweetest Sundays that I can remember. God is working. So my encouragement, church, for you, for all of us, is to see that God is doing heart-transforming work in our midst. We just need the eyes to see it. And maybe we can even ask the question, how has God transformed your heart? Seriously, if God has made a transformation in your heart, in your home, anything you're doing, I would love to hear about it. You can send me an email. Send it to me at doug@triumphlbc.org. doug@triumphlbc.org. I'd love to hear your story, whether it's a 180-degree turn from hostility to tenderness, coming to faith for the first time, or perhaps just a continual growth as the gospel has transforming and continue to transform your heart. I'd love to hear it. All right, so that is a little bit about hearts. And again, when we think about our vision statement, we move from hearts to homes, and it's not by accident. If you think about it, a heart that's been changed and transformed either in big ways or in some small way on a regular basis, it changes the family that you live in. Whether you're married with kids, whether you have no kids at home, whether you're single parenting, or you're single and your friends that you spend time with are your family. Our changed hearts are naturally going to change our homes. So I've got a couple stories about homes that I want to share as well. So the first up is one of our own ministries. It's the Deacon ministry. So the Deacon ministry, again, is a ministry that comes alongside the financial, tangible needs of those in our congregation. So a little bit about the assistance that they do. And you think about all the homes that are impacted by this. 30 plus families and individuals were approved for assistance, and they gave away $35,000 that had been distributed to those families. On top of that, they partnered with Valley Christian Counseling for over 120 individuals to have help in receiving assistance in counseling for their needs that they have at Valley Christian. The Giving Tree provided gifts to approximately 60 families and 120 individuals. And the Winterize Your Car helped 20 women be ready for the winter with their vehicle. The donations that we come in, we're celebrating right now with our deacons. $46,000 were given by you guys this past fiscal year, and our congregation continues to be generous with our deacon ministry. Frankly, to the point where it's hard for them to outspend your giving. You guys are giving so generously, so we say thank you, a huge thank you on behalf of the deacons for what a blessing you are, church, to their ministry. So maybe just a couple examples of help from our deacons. Gas cards are provided to families who travel for a long distance for appointments for cancer treatments. We've helped the number in our congregation that are on a limited income and they need help when they have unexpected car bill or other expense that comes up. There's a young family that had unexpected expenses with a newborn that was placed in the NICU, and they're able to help with that. They provided assistance to someone who was going through a medical challenge and couldn't work for several months and didn't have short-term disability to help cover. And they help with living expenses for several in our congregation that have been going through significant medical crisis, whether it be cancer or injuries, long-term hospitalizations, the like. Our deacons are such a beautiful way in which homes are impacted as financial and tangible resources are given. Now I want to tell you a story about invitation. Let me tell you about the Thornton family. This is Lindsay. Lindsay Thornton is and her husband Clinton, and it's their kids Olivia and Finley. They have a home transformation story, and it is all built around repeated invitation. You know, one of Lindsay's good friends attends Triumph, and this friend had been inviting Lindsay and Clinton to come to events at Triumph for years, with absolutely no luck. To quote Lindsay, she said, "She'd been dropping little crumbs. She just kept asking me to come to church." Well, one day, the event sounded good enough to attend. It was a barbecue at our East Campus. So Lindsay and the family came, and they really enjoyed themselves. After having grown up never really attending church, Lindsay now found herself enrolling her daughter in Club 316, which is the Wednesday night kids programming at our East Campus. Well, that led to the entire family attending Wednesday night worship services. What blew Lindsay away most was how friendly everyone was. Being met by Jarvis at the front door every Wednesday evening, and people knowing their names and asking about their life. This past winter, we made the decision to end our Wednesday night worship services at our East Campus. And Lindsay was invited to join a women's study. By the way, it's the same one that Susan was a part of. And God used this study to impact her life as well. So here's the status of this family as you think about what happened with an invitation. Now, there are many of these invitations from friends. They now rarely miss a Wednesday night. The kids love what they're learning and what they're doing in Club 316. Personally, I and Clinton have had great conversations. I've gotten to pray with him a couple times during a foot surgery and complications from it. And Lindsay just purchased her first very own Bible. For the first time, she now has a Bible that she calls her own. Oh, and they decided that Park Christian School would be great to place one of their daughter, Olivia, in. So now she's learning and growing in a Christian education as well. And the whole family is looking forward to jumping back in the fall. Why? Because of an invitation from a friend. So there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and this one's kind of fun for me. This is one of those digital conversion type stories. I don't know if you know this or not, but during Holy Week this past year, Triumph pastors did 3 funerals in 5 days. All of them were for unexpected deaths. Pastor Tony from our West Campus shares this story about Elizabeth and David. Now, their names have been changed at their request of the family because they're new to Triumph and still grieving the whole situation. But the story is still the same and it's still true. I want to read this story from Pastor Tony for us today. One afternoon, we received a call from a family who wanted to visit. So I found myself, this is again Pastor Tony, in my office talking with Elizabeth and her son. As they sat across from me, they explained the reason for their visit. David, their husband and father, was in the hospital and not doing well. He had been in for emergency surgery and had not returned to consciousness afterwards. Now they were faced with implementing his advance directive and removing his ventilator. And they expected he might not live long past that. Elizabeth explained that she and David had been worshiping with Triumph online since moving to West Fargo in 2020. Now they needed not only a place to worship, but they needed a congregation to walk beside them. Pastor Tony said that he was able to reassure them that Triumph was indeed their church home, and that we would be there with her. In the days that followed, David lost his battle with his illness. And we were able to celebrate God's redemption at his funeral and to walk with this family through the next several weeks. Now, with health concerns reduced, Elizabeth worships with us in person. Praise to the Lord that he provides you a congregation, to care for his people and for the privilege of walking alongside each other in difficult times. Again, what makes this story so unique and so fun for us is this whole digital world is still one we're learning and growing in. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know how we're supposed to act within it. But here we have a story, and by the way, many others, stories of individuals who started online, watching us on the computer, watching us on the phone, watching us on their TV, and have been impacted by the life and message of Jesus to the point where they're now in our worship services. So we have one more ripple to look at. We talked about the heart, we talked about the home. Now let's move on to how it impacts a city. We believe in the cities being transformed. Here's what I want to do. I want to tell you three quick stories from here. The first one has to do with Fix It Forward. So Fix It Forward is an organization that provides free auto repairs. They're outside of our church, but they do free auto repairs and they donate cars to in-need members of the Fargo-Moorhead community. They've given away over 350 vehicles and completed repairs on another 700 plus. And there's Triumph connections with this one. First of all, it's a partner ministry with us, meaning that our elders have reviewed this ministry and excitedly endorse their work and the impact they're having on our community. Number two, our deacons support and use this ministry for repairs and for donations, including holding their Winterize Their Car event at their shop. And here's what's fun too, is that this ministry was co-founded by a Triumph member, someone who sensed the Lord's leading to step into a ministry to impact our city. And he went and he did it. We have Fix It Forward. So I called Jeremy Jensen, that co-founder, and he shared two quick stories that I want to share with you. The first one has to do with a Bible being given. See, here's what the deal is. When Fix It Forward gives away a car, the recipients not only receive the car, but they receive a gift. It's a Bible wrapped up, a gas card is in there, and a prayer cross that's been provided by our friends at Hope Lutheran here in town. Well, one gentleman received his vehicle, and after sharing his gratitude with the team, went to his vehicle to drive away. The team then saw him rushing back into the building, and as they entered, they noticed tears in his eyes. And he said this to them: "I've wanted a Bible for years, but I could never afford one. Now I have one. Thank you so much." Here's an individual who just received a car for free. And what did he notice? That they gave him a Bible. Second story, we just entitled What Neglect. There was a vehicle that came in for repair. So it wasn't one of the donated ones. It was one of the repair ones. And it was in bad shape, real bad shape. They thought as they looked at it, how could someone neglect their car this badly? So much so that they contemplated whether they should even fix it. I mean, was this a waste of ministry resources? Well, they decided to fix it anyway. So they fixed the brakes and they fixed the heat. It was wintertime and it had no heat. When they handed the keys back to the mother who owned the van, she thanked them. And she said this. She said, "You know, for the last several months, I had a choice to make. I could feed my kids, or I could fix my car. I chose to feed my kids. Thanks for fixing my car. Fix It Forward is a ministry that has made a huge impact in the lives of over 1,000 people, 1,000 families in this city as they share the good news of Jesus in practical ways, like a vehicle and all the repairs and the giving that needs to happen with that. So we're grateful, Jeremy, to you and to others, so many in our congregation that volunteer and give of their time at Fix It Forward. I also want to tell you the story of Deb. So Deb is a faculty member at the University of Mary. She wrote a little bit of her story, and I wanted to share a little bit of that story with you today. Deb says this: somehow, through the Resolute sermon series offered at Triumph at the start of the new year, God began to work in my heart. It was probably all the fun walk-up music, right? For those of you who were a part of that. But God began to work in her heart to take inventory of the resources, the talents, and the opportunities that were available to me, and to be intentional about reaching out to the occupational therapy students that I teach as a faculty member at the Fargo Satellite Campus of the University of Mary. She had the thought to use the Lenten season to lead a Bible study. So they scheduled it for 1 hour a week over the lunch hour when they knew no one had any conflicts. She says that we set the time for our first session hoping that 5 to 8 of the students might show up. But to our surprise, everyone came to the Bible study. All of the students in both classes, plus a few online and some staff members and an adjunct faculty member. 24 people in all showed up for the Bible study. Every session began with food and prayer as students and faculty were dispersed into small groups of 4 to 5 people to search the scripture and to answer basic discussion questions. From there, representatives from the small group shared key insights with one another on the topic. And we left time at the end for personal reflection and for prayer. We did not have full attendance every session, but everybody came back at least 4 to 5 times during the 7-week series. Not everyone attending was a Christian, but everyone had the opportunity to participate equally in the discussion, which led to some interesting dynamics. Those who were Christian had opportunity to share their perspectives with their classmates, hopefully setting a stage for other conversations after the study. Faculty could also see the positive benefit of studying and drawing students together in community. And yes, we did have some gaps, some things we wish we wouldn't have done and wouldn't do again, but we learned from our mistakes. And as a result, there's now a core of students and faculty in the Fargo campus who are excited to extend the series into the fall with a new emphasis area. As I close, I want to emphasize that I share this story not to say, look at what I did, but to say, look what God did when I took a step of faith. It makes me wonder what God has put on your heart to do, and the question of will you do it? I love this story because, again, it's a story of those in our midst. Those are somebody who has been impacted by the ministry of Triumph and has been touched by the gospel and is now sharing that message of Jesus in their workplace, which happens to be a school. So Deb, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for your sharing of the story. We know that it's making a difference on that campus. The last story I'm going to share comes to you from the New Life Center, which again is a partner ministry of ours. And we love partnering with outside organizations because here's the thing. There's things that we don't do and we can't do. And if we tried to do them, we wouldn't do them as well as they did them. So this is one of the New Life Center is a shelter for men. They provide emergency overnight sheltering, community meals, assistance to help men get back on their feet. And so we partner with them. You can see just a couple of the stats that were shared with us, including the number of meals that were served, 77,000 meals, which averages out to about 212 meals a day through the New Life Center. 844 men are safely sheltered, and 260 individuals are volunteering at the New Life Center, many of which are you guys as Triumph people jump in. Well, what I want to do is I want to read Francisco's story. It was a story that was shared again with us. And I don't know what your thoughts are and what your presuppositions are about homelessness and how people get there. There's so many different ways in which people can find themselves in a situation of homelessness. And this is Francisco's story. So I'll read it again as is provided by the New Life Center for us and for our church today. Francisco had been dealt more than his share of tragedy and heartache. He grew up in Phoenix and life wasn't easy. His dad was in and out of prison, and his mom died when he was 15. Childhood instability and trauma fueled an early life of drug use, crime, and eventually a broken marriage. While a short stint in jail for drugs helped him get clean, it shattered his marriage and his relationship with his kids. Picking up the pieces, he relocated to Minnesota, where he met and later married a single mom of 4. Determined not to let history repeat itself, Francisco worked hard to stay clean and provide for his family. Working various jobs, he made sure bills were paid and food was on the table. In 2011, his wife's health started to decline. Complications from a rare form of asthma, coupled with heart failure, would ultimately require around-the-clock care. Francisco left his job to care for her. One evening, while out with friends, his wife had a severe asthma attack and went into cardiac arrest. Francisco started chest compressions while their friends dialed 911. Efforts to revive her were unsuccessful. His wife of 23 years passed away in his arms. A few months later, his 23-year-old daughter died as a result of domestic violence. Flooded with grief, Francisco relapsed. My wife died, then my daughter. Things you don't plan for in life happen one after another. I went back to doing the things that I shouldn't have been doing, he recalled. His addiction spiraled him out of control. Having lost his family, his home, and falling in debt, Francisco acknowledged his issues and reached out for help. At the New Life Center, Francisco found hope, committed to change. Life looks different. Spiritual mentorship and daily devotions reestablish his relationship with Christ. By addressing his trauma and life-controlling issues, he has newfound strength and is beginning to heal. Francisco is also working to obtain full-time employment and housing with the help of his case manager. You know, we partner with organizations like the New Life Center and others to do the things that we can't do, to impact the city. And God has gifted incredible people in our congregation, many of whom are on this recording. And you guys are responding to his call to reach out to neighbors and to coworkers, to start nonprofits, or to make a meaningful difference by volunteering. That is cities being transformed by the life and message of Jesus. It just is. So I want to close our thought here on cities being transformed and repeat a line that Deb Hansen shared. She said this: "It makes me wonder what God has put on your heart to do. And will you do it?" All right, time to wrap this up. I'm sure you're sick of hearing from me by now. I've been going for about a half hour. But I hope that these stories, I hope and trust that these stories have been an encouragement to you. I know it has been an encouragement to me. Try and know this: God is moving. He is doing things to impact the lives of so many people. So before I wrap this up, I want to get excited a little bit for what's coming in this next year, because I really, really am. A couple things to look at. First is the preaching and teaching as a church as a whole. We're going to spend our summer in the Psalms. We've talked about this a little bit in our worship services. Begins next week. We'll have an email going off to describe the series soon, but we're going to spend our entire summer kind of going through just different Psalms. And if you want to read with, an opportunity to read with as well, and a 90-day reading challenge, you can go to triumphlbc.org/Psalms. You can get all the information there. Also coming up next year, we're still working the details out of it, but we're going to spend next September through May preaching through the Gospel of Mark. Such a powerful, wonderful gospel, the short gospel that tells the story of Jesus. We have 6 individual series that we're going to be looking at as we look at the Gospel of Mark. We'll cover nearly every verse of the Gospel of Mark in different pieces and in different chunks. Really looking forward to spending a year in one of the Gospels, and so I'm hoping you are as well. Hey, East, a couple things for you guys to look forward to. First of all, Pastor Ben is coming, right? Pastor Ben Bigwood and Jen Lee are going to be coming. We're so excited to have them come and be a part of things. So they'll be coming in August and starting with us. And also for the fall, the worship service change for our Sunday morning, the pattern that we'll be changing to with the togetherness as a campus. 9 o'clock education fellowship, 10:30 worship. Looking forward to that. West, not much specific is changing for you in programming and things like that. Little things that you'll see, notice along the way. But Jay just really talked about how encouraged he is. Pastor Jay just commented on how excited he is for the people coming through the doors. He made a comment at one of our elder meetings a few months ago, that just said, the eyeball test tells you there's new people here. But now we're actually starting to see it. See it in follow-ups. We're seeing it in questions. We're seeing it in those new profiles that are being created on the database. God is moving and God is stirring, and there's much to be excited about. As we think about Psalm 66 again, come and see what God has done, his awesome deeds for mankind. Is anyone else kind of excited to do this again next year? I mean, to hear the stories that we're going to find as we go through this next year, like what are we going to say this time next year? I don't know what this next year holds, but I'm certainly excited to see how the Spirit will work as he uses us to share the life and message of Jesus so that it will transform hearts, homes, and cities. So thanks for allowing me to take 35 minutes or so here, give you an update. Again, just such a small glimpse of the ministry that is happening at Triumph. And we're grateful for all that God is doing and the role that you are playing in this. Thank you so much.